Hi everyone, it's Roger here from the What's On at Disney Plus podcast. This is episode number 233. In this episode, me and James are going to be talking about The Mandalorian, the return of the third season. We're going to be talking about whether or not we think Disney has been promoting it enough and why it doesn't feel quite the same as what we've seen in the past. We'll also be talking about other aspects of The Mandalorian. We'll be talking about our first thoughts on the brand new Marvel Voices series. Plus, we'll be talking about a number of trailers that have been released this week. There's a whole host of different ones that we're going to jump into. But before we do any of that, quick bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com, like, favorite, bookmark, etc. You can also find us on social medias. And you can also be sure to hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, or if you're listening on the audio platforms, to keep up with the latest episodes each and every week. Okay, so let's jump into a couple of quick bits of news. First off, so yesterday on Friday, Disney was supposed to be releasing the Finding Michael documentary. It had been previously announced. There was lots of posters and stuff. Literally that morning, even Spencer was on this morning here in the UK doing live promotion for the documentary. However, it didn't arrive. It looks like there's some issue going on. They did put out a quick statement this morning, just to sort of say, we're sorry that the debut date for Finding Michael has shifted on Disney Plus. We'll let you know as soon as we have new timings for the launch. This will be in the near future. Thank you for the patience. So it's definitely, I think, it's going to be coming soon. So hopefully it's not too long. But yeah, unfortunately, sometimes this stuff does happen. It is a shame. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Right, now let's jump into just looking here at a couple of new additions to Disney Plus this week. A couple of new collections have been added. So first off, here in the UK and around the world, we've got a new anime collection. So lots of great stuff in here that we can enjoy. Got a whole host of bits and pieces. You've got Bleach, you've got Summertime Rendering, you've got Downfall, Visions, Tokyo Revengers. Hopefully this one does get rolled out internationally when more stuff gets added. It's nice to see that one. There was also a Her Stories collection added to Disney Plus in the United States. And this one just kind of celebrates International Women's Day with lots of content, loads of films and stuff, all featuring sort of women characters and women creators and stuff. So definitely check that one out. Loads of great stuff in there. Miss Marvel, you got Brave, you got a whole host. Haven't yet released that one globally yet. Sometimes with these collections, they kind of roll out bits and pieces and they don't roll out everywhere, which is a shame. But it's always nice just to have these ones kick in. And yeah, so there we go. So that is some of this week's kind of quick news bites. Now let's bring in James and let's discuss some of the big stuff. Okay, so now we've got James in with us. Let's now talk about some of this week's there's a lot of trailers this week. It was kind of I thought it, going to be a little bit lighter, but no, with The Mandalorian, I thought, oh, they're not going to focus on it. But no, the exact opposite. We got loads of trailers. So first off, we've got Peter Pan and Wendy dropping April the 28th. What did you think of this trailer?
Not. It was kind of lukewarm, I guess. It didn't feel like it was anything particularly different from the animated movie back in the day. There was a little bit at the end, the boat was coming out of the water and, more down. That looked kind of cool. But the rest of it was just like, this is a live action remake of the classic Peter Pan. And I'm sure it'll do great at the box office because as much as we complain about
straight to Disney Plus.
It would have done fine at the box office, but coming straight to Disney Plus, I don't know. I don't want them to make direct remakes like they did with Lion King or things like that. The ones that stand out were more like Aladdin, where they did their own thing, or the Cinderella one, which was a much different take on it. I don't know. I'm not interested.
Yeah, the thing is for me is I've got a couple of ways. First off, when it's almost like a scene by scene remake, you kind of can't. I felt like you've always got this constant thing of like, what's coming, what's next, and whether it's almost like you're just rewatching a film, but it looks different. It's kind of weird. I was not a big fan of The Lion King for that reason. This one, for me, Peter Pan is just one of those classics which I remember watching a few times as a kid, maybe, but it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't one I would rent for 50p. It wasn't one I used to sit down and watch. There was other ones I used to like more than this, and yeah, I don't have that. Like, this Peter Pan is like one of my childhood films. I just don't have. And it's that kind of thing. Like, it's probably been so long since. It probably work out all right because it's been so long since I watched the film that I won't remember it when I watch the new version. It'll be like, I'll kind of feel a bit more fresher because I mean, it must be 20, 30 years. It's probably that it's that long since I've watched it. And I'm not going to try and watch it now, but it's that kind of thing of like, yeah, it might help the fact if I can't really remember too much. So it might make that one a little bit, but it's one of those things of just leave these alone. Just give them a break, or only do one a year, or just I don't know, because we got Little Mermaid coming out, and it's like I don't know. I think there is also. I do wonder if there is that boredom factor for some of these ones, because it's going to be interesting to see how Little Mermaid does and how well Peter Pan and Wendy has the shine come off this stuff where people are like, oh, you've done this too much now. Or is
yeah, but almost every time we say something like that, or the media says something like that, the movies still end up doing amazing at the box office. Obviously, we can't tell with this one, but Little Mermaid, we'll see how that goes. And yeah, as much as people complain about them, including us, Lion King made $1 billion at the box office, and at the end of the day, Disney is going to look at that far more than people complaining on Twitter or Reddit or Facebook about it.
Yeah, I think also Pinocchio was so bad. It was such a generic.
I suspect a lot of people have already forgotten that Pinocchio came out, even though it had Tom Hanks in it. So
yes, so that one's coming out. We've also got Up Here, which is coming out. I'll just check the dates on that one. So this is a brand new series coming to Hulu in the US. It's also coming to Disney Plus around the world on March the 24th. It is like a musical, but with like people, like characters from their heads, like standing around. Was not what I was expecting. The trailer it was kind of refreshing of watching a trailer going, oh, was not expecting that. I'm going to give this one a shot, because it's like, this feels a little bit different. Feels a little bit interesting. So yeah, the trailer did a very good job of turning what I thought was just going to be, a romantic, TV series. It's like, yeah, whatever. And they went, oh, that looks a little bit more fun. What about you?
And this is why trailers are important, is to kind of establish what a movie or a show is about, right? And so most trailers, I think we agree, are fairly cut and dry. It's an action movie starring Bruce Willis. You know what you're going to get. It's a rom-com starring, I don't even know who the romance leaders are these days anymore.
Jennifer Anderson. There we go.
Yes. You know what you're going to get. But then, like you said, I went into this, it's kind of like, okay, might be cute, might be well put together, and then you get to the trailer, and it's like, oh, that's they actually are going about this a slightly different way. That might be very interesting. It is worth remembering, though, again, as we've talked about in the past, that when you're talking about review critics, movie critics, and television critics, being different often stands out a lot more than a well put together take on the same formula. So while both of us are kind of like, "Ooh, this is new and refreshing," and it might not hit the same for someone who does not watch 3 movies and 8 shows per week. So
I've got some there's friends and stuff that critics and stuff, and the amount of stuff they watch, it's like I'm like, I don't know how you got, because I like just keeping up with the Disney stuff is enough kind of thing. But yeah, it is pretty crazy. I'm looking forward to this one. This one definitely stood out to me as being interesting. We also got a trailer for The Crossover, a brand new series coming out on the 5th of April. This one is, they're going to be dropping it all at once, I'm just like, woo! The warning signs are going. It was announced as being going on the Disney Channel, and then that's like the press release that's just come out. It's dropped all reference to the Disney Channel, so I don't know what's going on with this. Again, this is just it's like I'm like, oh, basketball. And like, we're like, next week we're getting Chan Can Dunk, and it's like, I struggle with basketball stuff as it is, let alone a series and a film within 3 weeks of each other. The Crossover, I've just got like no interest in this at all. What about you?
It, I don't know, feels kind of generic, honestly, but as we've seen in the past, and I will continually say, the sports movies in particular, it's not about the sport itself. In many cases, it's the story that you tell around it. Like, because neither of us are basketball fans, but we both thought Big Shot was a really good show. And then the Rise, which I was just about to mention, that was actually really good, because it's a story about family, immigration, blending into a new culture, things like that. So we'll wait to see what this is. But the trailer didn't really indicate that this is anything other than we're really good at basketball, or we really enjoy basketball. And they weren't really good at basketball. There's no hook in it, is what it seems like from the trailer. Like the opposite of what we were just talking about with the previous show, where the trailer is like, ooh, this draw my attention in. This tells me what separates this from everything else. This one's like, no, it's a basketball show. Enjoy.
And again, these have a tendency they're not very good, probably international drivers as well, because there's quite limited. On one hand, it's like these kind of shows allow them to do something a little bit longer than a film, but I just Disney, please just try and do some different sports. The kind of running the basketball, it's like try something else. I don't know, try some tiddlywink or something like that. Something a little bit more, because you can swap out the sports often but it gets a little bit like, instead of, if you're not just move it around a little bit. It's just because there's a lot of them.
They do have a pretty good variety of sports, but it does seem, at least from a perhaps European perspective, a lot of the sports are American-centric, things that are much more popular over here than they are in Europe. But we do have things coming over. Granted, it wasn't on Disney Plus here, but we had Welcome to Wrexham and Beckham's whatever.
Yeah, that was
the far inferior Welcome to Wrexham. There was that soccer show about the Netherlands.
You had foreign idol. So there was also that there was a female rugby Aussie rules documentary. So they have been doing stuff. It's just I feel like the drama side of things, they just seem to be just so focused on basketball, which it'd be just nice to do something else.
It certainly feels like there's been a lot of basketball properties lately. I would suggest though that there is a bit more of an international appeal to them than might first appear, but we're talking more about like the Southeast Asian countries, because basketball seems to be getting very popular in places like China and Japan and South Korea. So they might be trying to tap into that kind of market too. But again, going back to what you said at the beginning of this particular one, it all dropping at once, them maybe taking it off the Disney Channel does indicate that there's like a lack of support behind this, and maybe it's not doing well with test screeners. So that I think speaks more than anything else that we've talked about so far.
It's going to be interesting because there's a lot of stuff going on at Disney right now. So we had that one. We also had the Haunted Mansion, which is coming out at the end of July in cinemas. So again, this was like that the trailer. This is what I loved about that trailer for the Haunted Mansion was it took the aspects of the theme park ride that you loved and just went in deep on it. It looks creepy, it looks scary, it looks, but it's got humor in it. I love the Haunted Mansion. And as you can see here, I've got the Haunted Mansion Lego set. I've got a little Haunted Mansion thing over here. I've got a piece of, I love the Haunted Mansion. So I'm in that zone of absolutely love it. The trailer, I'm in. I'm going to go see this one. And also that I like, you've got Owen Wilson in there, so you got a little of humor and stuff. It just like, this is just a fun Disney live action. And also in some ways it's something a little bit original, because while they have had that Haunted Mansion movie with Eddie Murphy, it's been a long time since that one came out, and that one wasn't really that good. I'm hoping with this one, I'm looking forward to it. This one should be a lot of fun.
And we also had the Muppets Haunted Mansion last year, 2 years ago. I can't remember offhand. But so they've been doing things with it. Yeah. I was a little bit more lukewarm on this trailer. I couldn't really tell what tone they were going for, because you've got the little bits of humor cut through it. You mentioned Owen Wilson, also Danny DeVito in there. Obviously, two very funny people when they want to be. And then the kind of slasher elements with, her wielding the axe, which of course is reference back to the ride and so on. So I'm not really sure. Are they going for horror? Are they going for comedy horror?
Family horror. I think
family horror makes the most sense. Obviously, it's still at the end of the day a Disney movie. We're not going to go in there and see Scream or The Exorcist or something like that, right? This is not going to be. For adults anyway, probably not keep you up at night horror. So it'll be a very tough balance for them to get, where it's scary for kids, but without like them not being able to sleep for 2 weeks straight, which means for adults it's probably not going to scratch the horror itches. That said, it does look much better than the previous movie. And like you, I love the Haunted Mansion. I make a point of going on it anytime I'm at the parks, regardless of which park I'm at, because it's pretty much everywhere. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not quite as like, ooh, they've got it the way they had like Pirates of the Caribbean and things like that.
I'm also looking forward to watching a Disney movie which is not like I would say it's not a franchise. It's not it's something a little bit different. I know they, like I said, they've done it before, but it's kind of feels a little bit fresher because they've not done anything like this one for a while, and it's a bit different. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one. It was also announced yesterday we're going to be getting a new Miley Cyrus Endless Summer Vacation, the Backyard Sessions. This is going to be coming to Disney Plus. It's going to be live, or it's going to be live. I don't think it's going to be live, but it's going up at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. UK time on Friday, the 10th of March. And she's going to be singing a number of her songs from the series, including Flowers and 7 other additional tracks, because the album is coming out around the same time, and it is kind of there's also like exclusive interviews. Yes, they kind of were teasing it early in the week, but it's glad now that they've kind of officially rolled it out there. That Flowers song, I'll be honest, I like it, but I've got to the point where every time I hear it, it gets stuck in my head for a week, and now I don't like it because it keeps getting stuck in my head because I keep singing it. Yeah, kind of one of those things, one of those earworms where you're like, get out! I don't want to sing. It's just going around and around.
I don't even know if I've heard the song or not. I probably have at some point. I don't know what the song is, and
yeah, it's definitely this one's gonna be. I think I'm gonna bring in a lot of people in. It's she's going to be one of the top artists of this month. I think it's going to have a much broader appeal than maybe the U2 documentary, which is dropping a week later. But really showing, Disney are kind of leaning in a lot more on these specials with the music specials, and I think this is a good way of doing it. I think new artist brings out new song or new album, because U2've got one out as well. I think it's the greatest hits album. Do a little performance thing. It just makes sense. It just makes sense on so many levels. I'm looking forward to watching it. It should be a little bit different.
I have no idea if I'm going to watch it or not, to be honest. We'll see. The U2 one sounds more my speed, because I like their older stuff. Their newer albums really haven't clicked with me, but the older stuff really did. But this kind of approach you're talking about does work well, because if you're not into Miley Cyrus, you're probably not even going to notice it comes out, and it's not going to really be in the way. But you're a U2 fan, you're going to check out the U2 one, or you're a Beatles fan, you're going to watch all the Beatles documentaries and so on. I doubt these really get picked up by people who don't like the band or the singer to begin with, but it doesn't matter. Most of them already have lots of fans, so it makes for a good Saturday night watch. What are we going to watch? Ooh, we both like this band. Let's watch this together.
I also find as well they're good, especially if there's a musical performances where it's something like you can rewatch. But then I'll watch the Taylor Swift one quite a few times over, and also the Olivia Rodrigo, because you basically just listen to the tracks. But it's cool. I like these kind of things. Hopefully they do more of them. I think they seem to be signing up a lot. I think I ended up watching that Elton John one I think I've had it on 3 or 4 times, because that was a concert. That was
a very good one.
That was really good.
It really well done, and they're expensive to make, especially for the really big acts, but they're not as expensive to make as scripted content.
Yeah.
So I expect they will continue doing this. It's relatively easy content for them to get up onto their streaming services.
Yeah. Especially if she's just singing in the back garden. Right. So before we get into the Mandalorian stuff, also this past week, we got the first episode of Marvel Voices Raising, a behind the scenes documentary on the music from the Black Panther Wakanda Forever. 3 episodes. They're shifting out on Tuesdays. We have the first episode this week, 2 more episodes to come. Did you watch this one? Oh, hello.
My cat apparently wanted to watch that one.
Black Panther.
I did. I don't think I'll watch the other 2, which isn't really a knock on the series itself. It's really well put together, but I didn't find the content of it all that interesting.
it felt a bit long-winded. It was very interesting in the fact that I can't think of it, Ludwig went out to Lagos and did a lot of the music there, lots of different performances. And I like the music. I do like I like the drums and everything. It's like this is a real in-depth documentary, but it's that thing of like, could this have not been trimmed down to 5-10 minutes for the sort of the assembled episode?
It really did feel very padded there.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's the main thing. It's like, why is this 3 episodes? You could have done this one very long episode or 2 shorter episodes. And there were definitely parts of it where I was just on my phone because they kept going on and on and on, and it didn't feel like they had enough content for how long it was.
Yeah, I think I wonder if I think one of the episodes might be maybe about like Rihanna's song and some other. So I wanted to get, this is going to be something I put on in the background when I work. It's not like something like you sit there and you have to watch, but I like the fact of them spreading it out a little bit more. I think they need to go back to that rather than doing the binge drops on these documentaries. Spread them out a little bit rather than. I think they should be doing this on all their shows, to be honest. It's just like using the weekly release, use different days, put them out on different days, so it allows it a little bit more room. So like, especially like with this show, if you put it out on a Tuesday, it can kind of have a little bit more space on like Marvel social media. It's not going to drum up a lot of excitement. But if it was buried under the Mandalorian, you're just not going to even notice this one's going on there. Like I said, it was okay. I was kind of a little bit long-winded. Like you said, they could have put it together and had one long documentary. But it's fine. It is what it is. So I'll be checking it out over the next 2 weeks. But we won't mention it next week. Right, let's now talk about Mandalorian. So before we get into the host thing about the episode, we'll do some other bits and pieces first. So obviously it launched on Wednesday, the first episode of the 3rd season. There has been a lot of publicity about it. At the theme parks, they've been bringing Mando to Disneyland Paris. We've also been having a whole host of different stuff as well with at Walt Disney World, at Hollywood Studios, at the Galaxy's Edge. The character is now available, and it's at Disneyland Paris. I don't know, because Galaxy's Edge has still been going around because we saw him at last year's D23. So they've been doing that. Pedro Pascal and Jon Favreau have been going around the world doing little mini events, there was a Forge pop-up event in London. There was a Q&A. And they've been doing only a few major promotion stuff. They've not been talking to like everyone, just a few of the big ones. There's been advertising. I mean, I know I've seen adverts on TV here, but there just generally seems to be a consensus of like people going, oh, they're not advertising it as much. They're not spending as much as money. What have you noticed? What's it been like over in your neighborhood?
I'm not the person to ask because I don't watch linear TV pretty much at all. I have ad blockers on my browsers. I have, thanks to my sister, at least I have YouTube Premium or whatever it's called.
So I have just upgraded to that this week because I was like, I know what, I'm getting so fed up with this same advert, and it's like why didn't I do this?
So I don't get ads. The only place I get ads is on Twitch, and I really don't watch that many streams. I've got a couple of friends who are watching. That's about it. I have no idea if this is being advertised or not. No idea at all.
See, I always go with the idea of like, if they start appearing on like chat shows, so like if they're on like Graham Norton, I think they're on this, they're on, because they was popping over here in the UK. The other one, and this is my big one, if I see a bus or signs on the side of the bus stops, that for me is when Disney like has gone into that zone of full advertising, because they don't do that for everything. They only do that for the top titles. I've not seen one yet, but but there's also been a lot of talk that Bob Iger has said that they're going to be cutting back on advertising. They are going to be cutting back on how much they're spending. And one of the things I really wanted to bring up was when you think of back to the launch of Disney Plus in 2019, the first episode of The Mandalorian, they were spending a fortune because they were advertising Disney Plus, the launch of Disney Plus. It was the start of it. The second season was, we've not had anything for a year. Here we go. We're going to spend so this going into this 3rd year is like they don't need to spend as much as they've done in the last. And I think that's a little bit like people aren't talking about it the same and all the rest of it. I'm like, well, I don't think people are, because obviously it's not as new as it was.
And this goes back to the problems that we saw with Netflix that have kind of come to a head in the last year or so. A new series, so like Book of Boba Fett or Ahsoka or something like that, generates a lot more buzz than a returning series, even one that is very well received, even including things like Game of Thrones or Mandalorian, any of these. So what ends up happening is, of course, they put their weight behind the next big show, the one that they want people to know about. Whereas this is more of a, at this point, if you like The Mandalorian or not. You can start at season 1 and you go, this isn't for me. You're going to stop right there. Or you've been watching it from the beginning. You're like, season 3, I am ready to go. And there's not much in between. Yes, there will always be a couple people who will trickle in here and there, especially at the start of the season. But the big boosts aren't there anymore. And one of the weird contradictions about advertising dollars is the more you put behind something that's already got buzz, the more the advertising dollars go. If you put $1 million of advertising behind Big Shot and $1 million of advertising behind Mandalorian, the Mandalorian dollars will go further. So they don't have to put as much into the Mandalorian now than they do into whatever their next big show will be.
Yeah. And I also feel like, sometimes shows just gravitate to an audience. This is The Last of Us right now. It's kind of got that like butt burst. People are talking about it all the time. We had it with Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, kind of grabbed all the attention. And it's like we're only on episode 1 of The Mandalorian so far. So it's still got time to grow. It's been kind of funny because, again, it brings out the same arguments that have been brought out on numerous years about the thing of, usually Americans will start going, well, why don't they launch it at like 8:00 at night, like our time, and we can, the internet will be a buzz because no one's talking about it. It's like, well, the reason is HBO has to do that because it's a linear channel and it's going out at a linear time, and and that's why it's coming in. The Mandalorian is a global show. It's available internationally, but also probably Disney Plus probably can't handle the whole of the US tuning in at a certain time to watch it. Because the thing is, Disney Plus, 160 plus million subscribers globally. 40 million of them are in 45, I think maybe 50 million are in the US. 50 million are like international, and then the other 50 are in India. And they're all on different servers and stuff. But this is why Netflix and Amazon and Apple, most of them launch in the middle of the night, because it's the technical issues of having millions of people coming in at once will cause massive problems for the streaming. It's not like linear television where you can have everybody tune in at once and it doesn't matter. On a streaming platform, they just can't physically, the servers just will not be able to handle it the same way.
And there's also the fact of, like we've talked about in the past, the United States covers 4 time zones, assuming we're excluding Hawaii, because that's way out there on the time zone scale. You launch it at what time that makes everybody happy, East Coast to West Coast. If you launch it at midnight on the East Coast, then they're kind of be like, well, I'm already in bed. But the people in the Pacific time zone are like, well, it's only 9:00 our time. We still got plenty of time. But if you release it at 9:00 on the East Coast, now it's only 5:00 on the West Coast, and they're like, well, my day's still going on. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing at 5:00 to watch this. So what is the happy medium? Well, nobody gets to watch it until the morning. And then it also, of course, slowly rolls out, becomes 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. on the East Coast. Maybe some people watch it then, and then Central, Mountain, etc. kind of, as you said, keeps the burden off. And it's a problem that there is no good answer for, honestly. Because even then you could go, well, we'll launch it at 8:00 local time, whatever your local time 8:00 is. Well, then you're on Twitter on the West Coast, and you're sitting there, and people are going, "Oh my God, did you see that giant crocodile thing at the beginning of Man?" And they're like, "I don't get it for another 3 hours."
Yeah.
So,
I know. I think it was sometimes on Star Wars Day, Disney Plus would be like launching all the stuff at midnight wherever they were. So like Disney Plus Day, not all of but some of the films would become available like sometimes like 12 to 15 hours earlier in like New Zealand and Australia. And I would having friends in like the Netherlands telling me, "Oh, it's up." It's like, no, it's only like 10, 11 o'clock here. It's not up yet. And there was that kind of, ultimately, you are never going to please everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, yeah, you focus, like, people go, well, they need to focus on America because it's an American show and an American platform. It's like, yeah, but there's a logistics problem here. And it's why the streaming services can't do, it's not the same as linear. HBO Max can do it because most of the people are watching on linear. And also it's not a global platform. It's only, and it's just it's a very different thing. And I know, like, I think HBO Max was having problems when Game of Thrones episodes were dropping. And it's a very tricky situation because the thing is, if you could put 100 people on the internet in a room together and none of them will agree on what time it should go up, because everyone will have a different opinion. Like, well, I go to school at this time, so I would like it to be at this time. And someone goes, I'm at work. I work nights. I can't. You're never going to please everyone. You can't keep the internet on track. There's never a good time. I'll be honest, 8 o'clock in the morning is not a great time for the UK. It's like, for me, I could easily say, well, actually, if it was a little, if it was 6 or 8 hours later, that would probably be okay. But then it's morning in America time again, and then that would be like, there is literally on the line. I suspect a lot of it is because Disney and Disney Store update generally around the same time. Disney's been doing these like 3 a.m. drops. I will be honest. The other morning, I was trying to book some bookings for excursions for a Disney cruise. Midnight Eastern time. So I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure I got my bookings on Disney's website. It's because, they do it all at night when they're served. And even then the website was struggling at midnight. It's, again, I think they often pick these times when, essentially they look at the graph and go, when are the least amount of people using the servers? And that's when we go. And it's a technical issue. And this, all of this kind of have to do with these kind of things.
Yeah. And there's no way around it, unfortunately.
No.
We can cry into the void as much as we want, but ultimately this is what Disney decided to go ahead and do. It's what we have to just kind of build around. And it's not even like the least bad option. It's what they picked. That's the end of the story when you get down.
It's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see like what happens like with this Miley Cyrus thing of like, will the servers be able to cope with it? That'll be maybe a bit of a test to see how that works. I know, for example, today it is Saturday, which means a new episode of Tokyo Revengers goes up. But it's sort of like a random time based on it goes out at Japan on a Japanese television time zone, and then it goes up when it's available in Japan like an hour later. So we're basically being controlled by the Japanese television network that's broadcasting it. And this is the kind of, we're, no matter which way, there's always little issues. And like I say, you're never going to please everyone. And it is tricky. I mean, there was I think like with the Elton John live, all the advertising was on a date. Well, of course they're going, yeah, but in Australia it's the day after because the time the world makes it a lot more tricky than it used to be.
Let's just ditch time zones. Everyone's uses UTC, and you do the mental calculations every time you see the clock. What that is?
Well, no, the simple system is you just use GMT, which is the center of the time zone.
UTC.
That's my times. Yeah, my
UTC and GMT are the same thing.
Yeah. What's just CMT? What's that one?
CMT is
that's Central Time, isn't it?
CMT, no, that's like in India or something like that. UTC and GMT are the same thing.
Yes.
Or Zulu time if you want to be military.
Yeah, so we just go on British time. That's the perfect way of looking at it. So let's now so the thing is now, like with the Mandalorian, obviously it is the big one. So we're going to get into the episode. It's been out a couple of days, so we're going to go into spoilers. What did you think of the episode first off?
Yeah, before we go to spoilers, just quick if you haven't seen it yet. It had some very good bits, and it had some like, why are you spending so much time on this bits? So that's the quick one. Overall, enjoyed it, but there are definitely some things that have me a little bit worried. We'll go into that in the spoiler section. That's what I'm at right now.
Do you know, it was one of those things. It was like Wednesday, put it on, watched it like after did all the updates, just smiling, just that kind of feeling of just like it's like that feeling of like, oh, I haven't had this feeling on a Disney Plus like release for a new episode for so long. It's like I didn't have this feeling with Andor. I didn't have it, and I didn't have it for She-Hulk. I think the last time I had it was for Moon Knight, and it was just like it was fun. It was light-hearted. I just really enjoyed this episode. It was just fun. Yes, there was problems with it and all the rest of it, but I think it was just that thing of like, oh, this is just fun, easygoing Star Wars. Back to basics, back to simplicity. Grogu's cute. Mando, and there was that kind of thing. I was just like, this is nice, and I just enjoyed it. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's comfy TV.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to like about it. I liked more than I didn't like. Well, didn't like is too strong a word, because it's not like I'm sitting here going, man, why did you waste your time on this? But it's more like, yeah, I'm not sure about this direction yet. So with that, transition to spoilers now. For me, the two bits that I was kind of like, I'm not sure about this. One, the opening sequence was going great with them doing the whole Mandalorian ceremony for the foundlings and the younglings, and it's like, this is really cool. We get some fun like tradition going on, and then giant alligator attack. I'm like, what? It felt I get it. They wanted to start with like an action sequence to to pull you into it. It's like, what is going on here? This is not the Krayt Dragon from season 2. This is not like the creature under the water from the beginning of season 1. This is just completely random and arbitrary. And why is this happening?
Yeah. See, I love that, because I mean, I think because I like watching crocodile stuff. I like that whole aspect. There was a kind of things that kind of, why are you trying to rope it? It's too big to rope the way you're doing it. You need to rope, do the and then I love the fact that they then did a crocodile roll, and but then of course them running in and picking them up and then dragging them off was like, yeah, okay. I loved it. I thought the thing is, I wasn't sure at the beginning, like, is this Bo-Katan? Is this Mando? And then, or was it a flashback? And then suddenly, oh no! And then obviously Mando flies in. And like,
right.
I did like that aspect.
I agree. I like that aspect too. And at first, before Mando shows up, I was kind of like, is this Mando's origin? Not the first origin. We got that in season 1, but like this is him becoming a Mandalorian. This is the, don't take your helmet off thing, which they obviously emphasized. But no, it's set in the quote unquote now of the series, and Mando shows up in the Naboo N1 starfighter and saves the day, and yay. But it was what you were talking about, where it's like, why are you trying to use grapple hooks on it? Why are you trying to like punch its legs? Or do you guys, this can't be the first time you've dealt with this threat, I guess. Why are you doing it this way? The entire sequence felt a little bit awkward. It's a big spectacle scene. It's setting the tone. I was waiting for it to end. Honestly, I was just like, this keeps going and going. I'm ready for this to end.
No. See, I it's that kind of thing of like big monsters fighting. I like that kind of thing.
Well, no. If it was two big monsters fighting each other, like Godzilla King of the Monsters or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, let's keep going. We can have 45 minutes of this. It's just, I was like, I'm here for Mando, a little bit for Baby Yoda. I want to see some Imperials fighting. Giant crocodile is not on my bingo card here.
Yeah, one of the things I did like was the kind of the introduction, the use of the space pirates.
Now, I did like the space pirates.
I mean, other than looking like Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, I wasn't too sure the green pirate. That
the lead one. The one that...
It's that kind of thing of like, I think like exploring other enemies and pirates and stuff is like, okay, let's kind of see where this goes. Of like, because I think they have used them in other shows. Were they in Rebels or?
I'm not sure.
I think they've all there was like the Pike Syndicate and stuff. We've seen like them,
right,
but not the pirates the same way.
Right. I don't know if we've seen these particular pirates. I'm actually glad that it didn't turn out to be like Onaka or the one who's over at the Millennium Falcon right now.
Yeah.
And whether or not they're new, it was still it's characters that are not overly familiar, regardless of whether we know them or not. So I do appreciate that. And it was a nice step back, because season 2 ends with this giant fight and Luke Skywalker shows up and, Boba Fett had cameos left, right, and center. And it was nice to just be like, yep, we got some bad guys and these bad guys are specific to this story. You don't have to worry about it too much. And obviously we will continue to see them throughout this series. I'm sure they're going to be a running subplot.
It's like the Book of Boba Fett, wasn't it? We had lots of.
We had the Pike Syndicate with them.
Yeah.
And those 2 Hutts who didn't do anything for most of the series. Well, that described most of the characters.
And like Hondo's obviously a pirate as well.
That's who. Yeah, sorry, Hondo is who I was thinking of. He's over at the Millennium Falcon right now. Things like that. I'm glad it was not. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him by the end of the series, especially since he is a character who, even if you haven't seen Clone Wars or Rebels, you'll be familiar with if you've been on the Millennium Falcon ride in either of the locations it's at. And of course, he's thematically connected with the whole piracy thing. But that whole sequence, I really enjoyed the gunslinger bit in the town, and we got to see the marshal or the mayor do his thing and be like, yeah, no, he actually is a legitimate, gunslinger. The only other time we've seen him fight was like season 1. I don't think he did any fighting in season 2. And then the Starfighter sequence. I've been on record multiple times. I love the Starfighter stuff in general. It's my favorite part of Star Wars. I grew up playing X-Wing and X-Wing and Rogue Squadron and all these things. So that sequence with them fighting in the asteroid field, that was my moment that you were talking about. Like, I'm just, yes.
Yeah. That was that scene of like, we're back to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
We're back to the classic. Like, that is the thing that you think of, like, say, of Star Wars bad. That Andor didn't have. Obi-Wan Kenobi didn't really have either. So it was just, like you say, it just took you straight back in there. And the fact of, it was a fun episode. I have the whole issue of them reactivating IG-88 was a little bit like, well, you could see where that was going a mile off, but
that happened even before the episode started. What previously on Mandalorian, and there's IG-11 blowing himself. I'm like, oh no, don't bring him back. And we'll wait to see how they do it. But honestly, that is my number one issue with is like IG-11. I enjoyed him in season 1. He had an interesting personality without being annoying like a lot of droids are. He does not need to be brought back, and I think it bringing it back actually kind of undercut season 1 a little bit as well, because part of the point was this is his sacrifice and he's fulfilling his directive, and he did what he did, and Grogu, Baby Yoda, is safe. Also, the thermal detonator was in his chest. Why is the chest the part that survived? Okay, that was the thing that was really irking me throughout that. It's like he should literally be little tiny pieces of shrapnel.
Yeah, it was a bit odd. It was definitely a bit odd. It was that thing. I did like the fact that they brought the little guys from the new trilogy. I thought that was quite. What I'm liking with these shows though is that they are, and I think this is the good thing that Filoni does is he blends together the trilogies much better. He uses stuff from the past and uses stuff in the future and blends it in. So like you're seeing much more, and it was a problem that we've had since the Phantom Menace came out was the fact of it was so different from Star Wars, the classic trilogy, and it's just we seem to just spent the whole time just flipping over, because I feel like when we went into the new trilogy, they were very much aware of we're just gonna repaint an X, we just repaint everything to make it look a little bit different, but not go drastically as big a difference as they did.
Yes and no. I mean, one of the common refrains, of course, is Force Awakens was basically just a New Hope with a new skin, right? I don't actually 100% subscribe to it. I think it's got a lot of elements from it, but I do see it as distinct films. But I know for a lot of people, it's just a New Hope with Rey instead of Luke.
Yeah.
Last Jedi, on the other hand, love it or hate it, is a very different Star Wars film. It is not The Empire Strikes Back with a new coat of paint. It is its own film all the way through. Granted, I still hate it, but I do acknowledge that, at least it tried something different. And it was definitely an attempt to expand the Star Wars universe rather than just tell the same story over and over again. Hate is too strong a word. I'm actually pretty lukewarm on it, but it seems to be a movie. You either love it or you hate it. And if
I think I've watched it so many. It was just like, I think I even went to see it as a kid. It was one of those things of that movie was probably the one I watched so much because it was, I think as a kid, it was much more appealing than The New Hope. It was.
No, we're talking, just to be clear, we're talking about Empire Strikes Back here, because I was talking about Last Jedi.
All right.
Just making sure
All
people
right.
like, Roger, how old are you that you saw Last Jedi as a kid?
Yes,
Empire Strikes Back, obviously.
Yeah. It's just I think it was interesting the way of how they've done it all with Mando. It feels a little bit more back to basics. I know some fans are been a bit like, well, Andor's a lot better than this, and Andor was better, and it should be more like that. It's like Andor has lots of good things about it. It's not. It is. I think it's fantastic, but it's not It's not Star Warsy in like the series, in like the movies were, in the same way of that general. I think Mandalorian is so much more for a general audience. Andor didn't pull in the viewers. It didn't pull in people's attentions the same way because it was more grounded. And that I would like them to have a bit more of a mix. It'd be nice to kind of get Mandalorian, but with a little bit more grit for Mandor or realism would be nice. But ultimately, we're talking about a movie or a series where we have space bounty hunters with special light wands and Jedi little green things jumping around. I get to a certain point sometimes where it's like, why are we trying to apply like all these like serious stuff, all these serious tones, trying to make it more? We're talking about spaceships and like space wizards, basically.
But that's part of what makes Star Wars work is that the universe has been expanded upon so much over the years that you can really stick whatever kind of story you want in there, and it still works. If you did Mandalorian in the style of Andor now, like, you've already got 2 seasons, season 3, season 4 is done in the style of Andor, let's just say, it would be a jarring shift in the way that the story goes. It's not the right way to tell the Mandalorian story. And the same for Andor. If Andor was done with the style, or Andor season 2 is done with the style of Mandalorian, be like, what about season 1? This was a very different style. And then you've got Bad Batch over here doing its own thing, and the upcoming High Republic show, which looks a lot kiddier and things like that. But you can do this. And even in the old expanded universe, they had straight up horror things. There was I think there were books, but still, you had horror things in there. You had action adventure. You've got romance stories. You can do whatever you want in the Star Wars universe. And trying to make everything into the same tone just would be boring.
No, it's interesting. It's a kind of weird thing. If like, I think for me, I'm just like, Mando weekly, this next 2 months, perfect. I'm getting in, like I think there's that thinking like, oh, we're gonna be like I got Star Wars Celebration coming up in a few weeks' time. We got the series coming on. We got other shows coming. It's just fun. It's just it's just fun, and I think that's the key thing with Mandalorian. Don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. It is just a fun, easygoing, mainstream Star Wars show, and love it.
And and they set up a number of storylines going forward in this that seem like they're going to be very interesting for season 3, potentially beyond. We mentioned the pirates, obviously the main story with him trying to get to Mandalore, him first trying to rebuild IG-11. As I said, I'm not really sure I like that plot point, but we're doing it, so might as well ride the ride and see where they go. And obviously we've had things in the past where like, I don't need this, but they end up telling good stories out of it anyway, so we'll go with it. I would have preferred if they'd use a different droid, but all right, IG-11 is going to be.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that they don't kind of go down the same path of like every episode is we need to put together the team for the big finale of like.
Well, that is basically a Mandalorian thing at this point. We know that episode 6 or 7 is going to be, all right, IG-11. IG-11, I built you. I need you to come and help me with this. Oh, Marshall, I need you to come and help me with this. Bo-Katan, well, you're just sitting on your throne doing absolutely nothing. You want to come out and help, etc., etc.
Except for Cara Dune, she's off into space.
at least they mentioned her, so it wasn't just like, well, you remember the end of season 2? There was Cara Dune standing there, and yeah, just forget about her. They did at least mention like why she's not going to be there. So there's that. But no, bye, Cara.
Yeah, that was, she's gone. But yeah, so there we go. So that is this week's episode of the What's on Disney Plus podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the first episode of The Mandalorian. Love to hear what you guys think of it. Remember to go check us out over at What's on at DisneyPlus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe, and we shall see you guys soon. Laters. So I just want to give a big shout out to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel members. So a big thank you and hello to Dana. We got Jonathan, DJ Frost, Top, Ben, Tim. We got Chuck, David, Malmoud, Raphael, Adam, Ricky, My VCR Still Works, Bina, Joshua, and Martin. And also big thank you to Babak. We've got Paul, Daniel, Aero G, Caleb, Red Marsman, Cody, Jacob, Darren, the Juice. We've got Sarah, we've got Giuseppe, and Lauren. Thank you, and Andrew. So thank you so much for your support. It really helps keep the channel and keep the podcast and everything going. Just means then that the podcast and stuff isn't reliant then on advertising. But thank you so much for your continued support, and we shall see you guys soon. Laters.